please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So today was one of the biggest days in the NHL, trade deadline day. And what a day it was. I was totally wrong about the trade deadline this year. I've been saying for 2 months now that I thought that this was going to be a weak trade deadline, a slower, boring day compared to how it normally is. And it was the exact opposite. This was, I think, one of the best deadlines we've had in recent memory. There were a ton of great trades today. A lot of really interesting deals, and we've seen a lot of teams, a lot of playoff teams really improved themselves today. I mean, Pittsburgh had an incredible day. The Oilers had a fantastic day. Edmonton did a beautiful job today. Carolina had a huge day, massive day for the Carolina Hurricanes. The New York Islanders as well, and I could keep going on and on. I am going to do a full recap of everything that happened that I have not talked about yet on this channel, everything that happened today. So please, I hope you'll stick around. Hit that subscribe button, guys, if you are new to the channel or not yet a subscriber for any reason. I've got a ton of great hockey content coming your way over the next few months, and I can't wait to share it all with you. So please subscribe. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Those thumbs up really help the channel a lot and to grow and help continue to grow this community. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the last trades that I haven't talked about, going back a couple days, go all the way through today, and just give my analysis on all the trade deadline action. So with that, let's go. All right, everybody, so the last trade that I talked about in its own individual video was the Ondrej Kase deal to Boston. Everything since then I have not yet talked about on this channel, and that's what we're going to go ahead and do right now, starting with the Cody Eakin trade from Vegas to the Winnipeg Jets. So this was a solid deal, especially I think for the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, they've got a lot of injury issues with Adam Lowry out, Perreault is out, Brian Little is out. They needed a depth center, a depth forward, somebody who can come in and play on that third line and just improve that team depth-wise. Cody Eakin is a great candidate to do that, and all they gave up was a conditional fourth-round pick, which could become a third-rounder, as you see here on TSN, if the Jets make the playoffs or re-sign Eakin. So it looks like the Jets are probably going to make the playoffs, so it likely becomes a third. But Cody Eakin will play a significant depth role with the Winnipeg Jets this year, so that's a solid pickup for them. We had a small minor league trade here on the 22nd, Ben Harper and Mika Salamaki. That really I'm not going to talk much about because that was an AHL deal. Then we get to yesterday. Ilya Kovalchuk from Montreal to Washington for a third-round pick. This is a very solid pickup for the Washington Capitals. Obviously, the Caps are one of the top teams in the league this year. They are all in on winning the Stanley Cup this year. Ilya Kovalchuk comes in a depth scoring role, somebody who can add a good number of goals to that team, and probably a third-line role, I would think, with that group. He comes in as a third liner here. They give up a third-round pick for it, so that's obviously nice for Montreal, a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs this year and is looking to build up assets, including draft picks, which they get here. But Kovalchuk, who's played well with the Canadiens, I really think is going to have a good rest of the season and playoff run with the Washington Capitals. Then we got to deadline day itself, and boy, today was a fantastic trade deadline as it started off early this morning with Mike Green going to the Edmonton Oilers for Kyle Brodziak and a conditional fourth-round pick. So this is a great move for Edmonton. All over the past few months when I've been talking about guys that potentially could get moved, I said Mike Green probably to Edmonton. Not to pump my own tires here or anything, but this was an obvious move. A lot of people saw this one coming, myself included. Edmonton's in a situation here where they're going to make the playoffs this season. But if you look at their lineup, they are heavily reliant on young defensemen who don't have a lot of experience, in some cases rookie defensemen. Right now, Oscar Klefbom's out injured. Chris Russell's also out injured, so that's 2 veteran guys out of your lineup. Edmonton needed a veteran D-man to come into that group. Mike Green is that guy. They did not give up a whole lot for him. Brodziak and a conditional 4th, that's really not a lot. Mike Green to Edmonton he'll play a significant role there, whether it's on the second pair or on the bottom pair. As a mentor and as an older player with experience, he's going to play a significant role there. Vladimir Mesnikov from Ottawa to the Colorado Avalanche for a 4th-round draft pick. This was Colorado's move. There was a lot of talk about Colorado possibly getting a goaltender. They did get a minor. They got Michael Hutchinson. It was a minor deal. They did not go out and get Carey Price or go out and get Henrik Lundqvist like some people had been talking about. They did, though, add to their forward group, which was probably the number 2 thing people thought Colorado would be looking to do, would be add to that forward group, and they did with Vladimir Mesnikov. He was having a solid year this year with Ottawa. Now he goes to a much better team in Colorado. I think that's going to be a nice pickup for the Avalanche. He'll probably play on the 3rd or 4th line there, but he gives you depth scoring that the Avalanche desperately need, and Ottawa continues to just acquire draft picks and accrue assets as they're in full rebuild mode. Then we got to some big trades, and I'm going to start just with this one. J.G. Pageau to the New York Islanders, one of the top teams that I thought would be in the market for him, for a conditional 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, and a conditional 3rd-round pick. So it seems like a lot to give up if you're the New York Islanders for a 3rd-line center like J.G. Pageau. But they re-sign him. He's no longer a UFA at the end of the season. They re-sign him to a long-term contract, and that is huge. That makes giving up all these picks well worth it for the Islanders when they get Pageau signed long-term. No longer just a rental. Now, that 2020 first-round pick would become a 2021 first-round pick if the Islanders pick this year's in the top 3. The Islanders are not going to be picking in the top 3. They're a playoff team this year. So that's going to stay a 2020 first-round pick. The 2020 second-round pick stays. And the 3rd-round pick, the Senators only get if the Islanders win the Cup this year. So obviously we'll have to see how the playoffs go. That remains to be seen. But they at least get a 1st and a 2nd for J.G. Pageau. Again, Ottawa's accruing draft picks. Solid return for them. And Pageau, well worth it for the Islanders, especially since he re-signed to a long-term deal. We followed that up with another massive deal in the first of a few today for the Carolina Hurricanes, acquiring Vincent Trocheck from the Florida Panthers in exchange for Eric Howla, Lucas Wallmark, forward prospect Eetu Luostarinen, and Chase Prisky. So, obviously, Florida got a haul in return for Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck, though, a guy who can come in, play a 2nd-line center role on the Carolina Hurricanes, which bumps Jordan Staal down to a 3rd-line role, and all of a sudden, Carolina is super deep down the middle. Carolina is ready for a playoff run like last year. I know they're in a wild card spot, but this is a team that if they get into the playoffs, I would not want to face. They are ready now for a playoff run. And for the Panthers, I mean, you get 2 legit NHL forwards, not star players, not superstar guys, but 2 regular NHL forwards, probably 3rd-line type guys in Howla and Wallmark, and you get 2 prospects as well. So that's a pretty good return there for Florida. I like this trade a lot for both teams, but Carolina, though, they are gearing up, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on. Then we get a few depth moves, and obviously here with Philadelphia, we knew that going into this deadline, they weren't going to be making a big splash. They weren't going to be making a huge top-end move. They were going to be looking to add depth to that 3rd and 4th line on this team, and they did that today, getting Nate Thompson from Montreal in exchange for a 5th-round draft pick. So, guy who's been in the league a long time, a lot of experience, a lot of playoff experience. Great guy to bring in for the Flyers. The Flyers have been playing a lot of players in their bottom 6 who are kind of borderline AHL, NHL guys. And now they've shored up that depth roles. They've shored up that bottom six by bringing in Nate Thompson and Derek Grant, which we'll talk about later on when we get to it. Really is going to help out Philadelphia heading into the playoffs. And Philly's another team that probably isn't going to finish in a top 2 division spot, is either going to finish third or in a wild card spot, but I would not want to have to play them in the first round. They are a scary team heading into the first round. Another depth move here comes from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had a hell of a day today, getting Patrick Marleau in exchange for a third-round pick, and that third-round pick becomes a second-rounder if the Pittsburgh Penguins win the Stanley Cup this year, according to what we have here. And that's a very real possibility. That is a very real possibility. Pittsburgh is one of the absolute cup favorites this year, and they've just added to it with their moves today. Marlowe's going to come in and play in a depth role, obviously third line most likely, but still can put pucks in the net and is a good veteran goal scorer there. Avalanche made their second move of the day by trading Calle Rosen back to Toronto in exchange for goaltender Michael Hutchinson. This is just simply looking for organizational depth from the Colorado Avalanche. At goaltender, obviously Grubauer's had some injury issues this year. Francouz's done a very good job in the backup role and when he's had to start, but they needed another goaltender. They didn't go out and make the big splash move to get Lundqvist or Price like some people thought they would, but they got a third organizational goaltender in Michael Hutchinson, who obviously hasn't had a very good year in Toronto. And Calle Rosen, again, borderline AHL, NHL defenseman, goes back to Toronto. Not the big defensive move that the Maple Leafs needed to make to really change things this season. And as we'll see, Toronto did not go on to make really any significant moves today, which is a bit surprising to me. Then Derek Grant also goes to Philadelphia, another depth move like I talked about. Prospect Kyle Criscuolo goes back to Anaheim along with a 4th-round pick. Another solid depth move, a guy who's been in the league a long time, really good 4th-liner. Solid veteran, Derek Grant. He's the kind of guy that Philly needs on that 4th line, and they did a good job picking him up. Then we have what I think is probably the most interesting trade of the day, or most what is going on trade. The Buffalo Sabres trade for Wayne Simmonds and only have to give up a conditional 5th-round pick that becomes a 4th-round pick if Buffalo makes the playoffs and Simmonds plays 10 games. He should be able to play 10 games. He hasn't really had any injury issues this year. But do the Sabres really have a chance still of making the playoffs? I mean, they're 6 points out, so points-wise it seems like it. But look at the teams that they would have to pass to make a playoff spot this year. They'd have to pass the Rangers. They'd have to pass the Florida Panthers. They'd have to pass the Toronto Maple Leafs potentially. I really don't see Buffalo making the playoffs. Why'd they get Simmonds, who's on a 1-year deal and is a UFA again at the end of this season? I don't fully understand why Buffalo went and did this, but they really didn't give anything up for it, so it doesn't matter. It's a late-round draft pick that they gave up. So Simmonds goes to Buffalo. New Jersey, I thought, would be able to get more in return for Wayne Simmonds, at least a third, but that's not the case this year, as Simmonds has seen his value significantly drop over the past couple of seasons as the offense has gone away. And we have the Boston Bruins making another deal with Anaheim, and I loved this one. Let me tell you, I loved this one. Danton Heinen, my least favorite player on the Bruins, is now gone. He's off to Anaheim in exchange for Nick Ritchie. And listen, Danton Heinen can score. He has some offense in him. It's not like he's a horrible player, but he's invisible 90% of the time. I watch the Bruins on a nightly basis. They're my hometown team. He's invisible 90% of the time. Yes, he'll pick up some points here and there. He'll have a game where he'll grab a couple goals, but he doesn't do anything else. And most of the time, he's doing nothing. So I'm very happy to see Danton Heinen off of the Bruins. And Nick Ritchie, the far superior of the Ritchie brothers, is going to come in. He's a big power forward, not afraid to play physically, can drop the gloves if he needs to. Really fits the Bruins style of play a lot, that big beat and bang tough forward. he doesn't have a ton of offense, but I think on a good team, he could probably score 15 to 20 goals a season on a good team. Boston is certainly that, leading the league in points right now. I just really like that move for the Bruins. The Montreal Canadiens got Aaron Lucic and a 7th-round pick from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for forward Matthew Pekka. Again, this isn't a real big NHL move, more of an AHL move from both of those teams. So we move on here, and then the Oilers have some fun. And let me tell you, the Oilers had a great day today. Not only did they get Mike Green, they also got Andreas Athanasiou and forward prospect Ryan Kuffner from Detroit in exchange for Sam Gagner and 2 second-round draft picks. So if you're the Detroit Red Wings, you're just trying to get draft picks, you're a rebuilding team. You get your 2 second-round picks for Athanasiou. That's solid for them. Gagner was a salary dump. But on a team like the Red Wings, you need a veteran guy like Gagner who's been around the league to kind of mentor the younger players and get them, teach them how to be pros and be a good guy in that locker room. I think Gagner can do that. And then for the Oilers, you get Athanasiou who can come in, play a top 6 role, can really play anywhere in the lineup. He could play first line, he could play second, third, or fourth line. You could put him anywhere in the lineup. He's an absolute speedster. Has some offensive ability, especially you put him playing with Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid, and I think you're going to see Athanasiou's numbers really skyrocket. And they get a prospect out of it as well in Kuffner, who I really don't know a whole lot about, but obviously Athanasiou is the centerpiece of that deal, and that's a huge addition for the Oilers as a depth scorer. Oilers also get Tyler Ennis from the Ottawa Senators in exchange for a 5th-round pick. So, again, a 5th-round pick, late rounds, those are throwaways most of the time anyway. Ennis, really, really good season this year with Ottawa. 14 goals on the year, another secondary scorer for the Oilers. They had a heck of a day today beefing up that forward group and getting ready for a playoff run. And at this point, looking at these moves that the Oilers made, they're not just trying to make the playoffs anymore. I think they know that they're a playoff team. They're trying to go deep into the playoffs, and adding these secondary scorers really, really help with that. And I think the Oilers were definitely one of today's biggest winners. Then we had a defenseman on the move. Derek Forbort goes from the LA Kings to the Calgary Flames for a conditional 4th-round draft pick. This one is just the Flames trying to shore up their defense. That's a big issue for them, is depth, particularly on defense. They don't have a lot back there. Forbort is a guy who will come in and be a solid player, either in a bottom pair role or in the middle pair. Probably on the Flames, the bottom pair, and he can be a good depth guy for them. And I really think he can contribute. And he was a good player for the Kings. Obviously, he's been on a really bad team the last couple of years. But when he first came up to the LA Kings, Forbort was a guy with a lot of potential. So I'm interested to see how he plays in Calgary. I think he could be a sneaky good player for them. Pittsburgh, again, like I talked about, one of today's biggest winners as well, made another move, this time with the Buffalo Sabres, sending Dominic Cahoon to Buffalo in exchange for Connor Sherry coming back to Pittsburgh and Evan Rodriguez. More depth scoring moves for the Penguins, and they really shored up their bottom 6 today. Sherry can come in and score, Rodriguez can score, and probably play like that 4th-ish line role. They already got Marlowe, as we talked about. This was a big, big day for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Really adding secondary scoring to that group. Where's my mouse here? We got to keep moving on. We had a small deal here between the Panthers and the Stars. Emil Juice, I don't really know a lot about him. Not sure how you say his name. Defenseman goes to the Florida Panthers in exchange for a 6th-round pick. That's a very minor deal, so we'll move on here. Then Carolina, they already get Vincent Trocheck. They make a huge move there, and Carolina goes out and gets Sami Vatanen as well from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for prospect Yanni Kuokkanen. Forward prospect goes to New Jersey, and a 2nd-round pick to the Devils. In exchange for Vatanen, who Vatanen could come in and be a real big addition to that top 4 in Carolina. And they weren't done shoring up their defense either, as they look to make a serious run into the playoffs this year. Robin Lehner, goalie trade. We don't see too many goalie trades, but Robin Lehner traded to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for Malcolm Subban and defenseman Slava Demin, who is a defensive prospect going to Chicago. So obviously we now have a huge goaltending duo in Vegas with Marc-Andre Fleury the starter and Robin Lehner backing him up. That's a huge move to shore up the goaltending position for Vegas. And then they obviously lose their backup to Chicago and Subban, so Subban will back up Corey Crawford there, and the Blackhawks get a prospect out of it as well. Smaller trade here between the Anaheim Ducks and Columbus Blue Jackets as Devin Shore goes to the Blue Jackets in exchange for forward Sonny Milano. That's basically just swapping depth forwards there for both of those teams. Carolina again makes another huge move, trading for Brady Shea of the New York Rangers, giving up a first-round pick. Carolina is all in. Carolina really is all in on this team being a contending team year after year. We saw them go to the Eastern Conference Final last year. They're going to try and make a run for it again this year. Brady Shea is a pretty high-level top four defenseman, and he's going to come in and play big minutes for Carolina. And the addition of Vatanen and Shea, as well as adding Trocheck up front, Carolina made some huge moves today, which will really set them up for hopefully, performing very, very well in the playoffs. We had another goalie swap here, a minor league goalie swap here between the Devils and the Canucks. Louis Domingue to Vancouver in exchange for Zane McIntyre. Those guys will both probably stay in the AHL. So that will be Markstrom's hurt now, so Domingue might back up Thatcher Demko for now, but when Markstrom comes back, he'll be sent back to the AHL, and that's a minor deal for both of them. Tampa Bay Lightning make another move, getting Barclay Goodrow from the San Jose Sharks and a third-round pick in exchange for a first-round pick in forward Anthony Greco. So Greco is an AHLer. He's only, I think, played one NHL game in his career and has spent the rest of the time in the AHL. But San Jose gets a first-round pick for basically a fourth liner in Barclay Goodrow. So Tampa Bay, it's really cup or bust for them this year. They're going all in on this year, giving up a ton of draft picks and Nolan Foote as well to bring in Blake Coleman and bring in Barclay Goodrow. Depth moves for the Lightning. They are going all in on this year, trying to make a deep, deep run and hopefully win the Stanley Cup. It's really Stanley Cup or bust for the Lightning this season. Corbinian Holzer, defenseman from Anaheim, goes to the Nashville Predators in exchange for Matt Irwin. So both of those teams just basically swap depth defensemen there and try and shore up, their number 7, 8 positions defensively. Christian Jews gets traded from the Washington Capitals to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Daniel Sprong. Again, fringe players, AHL, NHL, right on that line. Depth guys at best. They just kind of swap guys there. The Vegas Golden Knights get Nick Cousins from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for a fourth-round pick. This is a solid depth move for Vegas. They're a team that obviously just traded away Cody Eakin. Needed, another depth body in there, somebody who can play in that bottom six but give you quality minutes in that bottom six. Nick Cousins can do that. He's been having a solid year with Montreal. And again, Montreal acquiring draft picks gets a fourth-round pick for him. Arizona, another minor deal here, gets forward Marcus Hannikainen from Columbus in exchange for a seventh-round pick, conditional seventh-round pick. Not too much going on there. Not much here. TJ Brennan going from Philadelphia to Chicago for Nathan Noel. That's also a minor league deal, so we'll keep moving here. Then the Flames come back again and get another defenseman, Eric Gustafson from Chicago in exchange for a 2020 third-round pick. And if the condition on it is that the Blackhawks will receive the Flames earlier of their two second round or third round picks in this coming draft. So whichever pick is earlier Chicago gets, Flames keep their other one. And Eric Gustafson, an offensive defenseman, goes to Calgary. This is much like the Forbort deal, although Forbort's more of a defensive defenseman. Gustafson's an offensive defenseman, but the Flames are trying to add to their defensive depth here, and they did that with a couple of trades today. And then finally, the last deal was a very minor one, an AHL deal between the Islanders and the Maple Leafs. Matt Laredo going to Toronto in exchange for defenseman Jordan Schmaltz. That's not going to affect either NHL team, I think, at this point. And there's your trade deadline, guys. So obviously it was an absolutely massive trade deadline. We had some huge deals. The Trocheck deal, the Vatanen deal, the Shea deal, all going to Carolina, massive. Pittsburgh made some big-time moves today. The Edmonton Oilers made some big-time moves today. The J.G. Pageau deal with the Islanders is great for New York. Really, it was a big day today, a lot better than I thought it was going to be, like I said earlier. And it was a really fun trade deadline, guys. So here's my full recap of it. We went over everything. Almost forgot, one of the biggest moves of the day wasn't a trade, it was a signing. Chris Kreider. We've been talking about him for 3 months as the top guy on the trade market. Chris Kreider was not traded today. He re-signed with the New York Rangers, 7-year deal, $6.5 million AAV, so he is staying in New York. So the top guy we've been talking about as the #1 trade target pretty much all season long, at least the past few months, wasn't even traded today, but still it was a great deadline and a lot of fun. So there's my full recap of it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and everything, and really love having you all a part of it. So like, comment, share, subscribe, guys. Hit follow along on social media. I've got links for those down in the description. If you want to support the channel and help support me and continuing hockey coverage, I've got a Patreon page and merchandise store down, and links are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys very soon.